So hey everybody, welcome. Whoever's joining us on Zoom, welcome. Whoever's joining us on live stream, welcome again. We're going to be talking about something pretty interesting today. I know you've got a lot of choices in what you do with your time. Thank you for joining and spending some time with us. We plan to make it worthwhile. So my name is Julian Lee. I'm the publisher of eChannel News, and we're going to be talking today about something that I think affects a lot of people: leveling up your Microsoft Teams managed services. I think a lot of people are using this right now, apparently, from the data we see. And so if you got any questions, by the way, you're welcome to enter them in the chat, and we'll get to them towards the end. A recording of this will be available for everybody post-event, so don't worry. If you have any kind of suggestions or whatever, you can chat with the folks offline and they'll guide you as we go. We've got two parts of this virtual event. We're going to be kicking it off with a panel discussion that's going to last only 30 minutes. And we're going to dig into the problem and the solution. And then in the second part, we have a workshop where we're going to be talking about how this thing actually works. And we've got two additional people that's going to actually help you do that. So digging into this, most MSPs sell Microsoft solutions, obviously, right? And we understand it's a challenge. If you ever use Microsoft, you know it's not as perfect as we think it is. And so there's some issues, right? And we're going to dig into that and how to solve that and make it better. The folks at Martello actually did a research with a company called EMA Research. If you don't know who they are, you can get their websites, enterprisemanagement.com, dig it up and see what they're about. So they interviewed a whole bunch of IT leaders, and basically what did they find? So they said that 33% see the Microsoft stuff as mission critical, right? So a big chunk. And then 21% said that if they have an outage with Microsoft stuff, it sort of grinds their business to a halt, right? But then only 10% had any kind of proactive monitoring with any kind of third-party applications. And really cool thing was that the three top apps were Excel, Outlook, and Teams, obviously, right? So when you dig into the problem of where these outages are happening, 23% was sort of due to Microsoft challenges, right? 77% was some other source problem. But 25% of the people sort of relied only on the Microsoft tools, and about 19% relied on users, the actual people using the stuff to say, hey, I've got a problem here, right? And so that sort of kicks off an investigation and then leads to something else. So that's sort of the gist of the challenge we're going to tackle today. So I'd like to welcome two gentlemen. Mike Danford, he is the VP of Global Sales at Martello. And we've got Chad McGregor, he is a co-founder and CEO of a company called Cloud Revolution. Cloud Revolution uses Martello stuff into their cloud solutions that they offer. And Martello is a platform that actually helps solve this problem. So Mike and Chad, welcome, both of you. How are you?
Thank you, doing well.
Yeah, all right.
Morning.
I think both of you are traveling right now, so I hope it all goes well with all the connections and stuff. So let's jump into this, my friend. So let's deal with this, Mike. First question there is just to try to sort of set the stage for what is this problem? We're using this, the rise of the remote work we hear about every day, right? We're all using Teams and all that stuff, but what gives? What's the problem?
Yeah. It's a great question, and good morning, and thank you for having me, Julian. It's it's something that we've been keeping a pretty close eye on over the last year. It's been a very interesting evolution, right? I know it's been challenging for everybody for a lot of reasons, but a year ago when we were speaking with a lot of customers, a lot of partners, it was really about adopting Teams, migrating from on-prem, moving to the cloud, and all of those challenges, and really starting to get their people, effectively being able to still do work from anywhere, right? That was the big challenge. It's like, okay, well, we just need to get people up and running. And over the course of the last 6 to 9 months, that message has changed, right? It went from, let's just get everybody up and running to, we've got everybody up and running, but this thing isn't perfect. It's got some bumps to it. And as we started having discussions with everybody from Microsoft themselves through to customers and then of course partners like Cloud Revolution, the challenge for everybody was we don't know what we don't know. Right? We don't have the systems in place like we used to, where we were all comfortable in our network environments, in our offices. We don't have the tools to be able to measure and understand where the problems are occurring, and then more importantly, how do we fix them, right? And so I refer back to a few years ago. The cybersecurity organizations were the first ones to really raise this flag, right? They said the perimeter is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It's now bring your own device. You can go on social media and other mobile applications, and you're in the office, you're out of office, you can work from anywhere. And that obviously created a lot of security challenges, right? And rightfully so that they sent the warning flag to all of us to try and get out in front of that. But because of the pandemic, the IT teams were really reluctant. They were like, yeah, but we aren't really concerned because we've got our comfy server room. I can wiggle a wire. I can kick a server. Everything's fixed for everybody in the office. The pandemic blew that up, right? So now Mike's working from home, or, Chad's somewhere else. And it's how do you fix Teams when it's not working? Or how do you make Office 365 actually work? Or if there's downtime and I can't get access to Excel, what do you do? And the IT organizations, again, don't know what they don't know. And so they've moved from this, let's get everybody using it, to help us fix the problem. And Martello over the last year has invested a lot of R&D resources into innovation around giving IT professionals the data as well as the insights to actually be able to solve the problem. So we do that a couple ways. First is, we use our analytics engine, which is, there's no robots or anything to install. It's day one value. It's immediate. So, okay, yeah, the house is on fire. It's confirmed. It's on fire. Then this is where you should look. And then we use a diagnostics tool that allows customers or, in this case, partners like Cloud Revolution, who are managing their customers' environments, to quickly be able to resolve those fires. Okay, let's put them out. And then most importantly, we use a monitoring solution or ongoing synthetic transactions, so that next time you'll be notified there's a fire before anybody else knows. And one of the key pieces out of that is that we've realized, after speaking with a lot of different IT professionals, is a lot of employees or those that they support have simply given up on putting in tickets. Imagine that. They don't even believe it's solvable anymore. But it is solvable. And so now when we use synthetic transactions and ongoing monitoring, you don't need to rely on them to put the tickets in. You'll be notified. You can correlate with incident management and really start to provide a high level of value and service for your customers.
Interesting stuff. I mean, that sounds like a big problem to try to crack there, but kudos to you to even attempting it. So Chad, here we go. We've got the theory. Let's talk about, the actual application. So Chad, give us a bit of a background in Cloud Revolution and exactly what you do with the space.
Sure, yeah. My name is Chad McGrainer. Again, I'm with Cloud Revolution. And so we're a Gold Microsoft partner. We have several advanced specializations, and we're a cloud services provider focused mainly on the Microsoft Teams workloads. And as we drill down, a lot of customers in the Microsoft calling or phone system workload and the meetings workload. And so our focus is everything from design and planning and consulting all the way through the configuration, implementation, and then what we call day two support. And that's where our Martello offer that we've put together comes to play here in helping customers. There was a huge enablement of the Microsoft Teams workload over the past 20 months. And that service has become critical from a perception perspective for customers to feel like, and their users can be proactive or be productive at work and have a product that they feel is something that they can depend on. And most of the time we're finding that customers simply just don't have the visibility that they need to provide good information back to users when they're having issues with maybe quality or meeting quality.
So Chad, another question there is like, so, you can definitely offer the Microsoft portfolio to customers, right? It's there. You can just, sell it, move it, whatever. But when you get into the actual quality of it, the performance, right? Making it better than what it is, right? You got to go a bit deeper and a little bit wider into the portfolio. So how exactly, what did you see as the run-of-the-mill Microsoft offering? And then what you guys did to make it like top shelf stuff?
Yeah, what we've seen, and we have tons of experience with this, and customers there's, Microsoft provides tools and reports that I would call out of the box to default available to the customer. There's the, call analytics report, and there's, some other reports that are in there that are, almost real time that users can, or, help desk staff can look at when a user says, this call that I just had wasn't the greatest. I'm not sure what's going on. Can you help me? What we're finding is that is certainly a reactive process. And so really what the difference is between what Microsoft provides out of the box versus what our service that we call CloudWatch offers is a proactive component to this. So looking at the environment proactively with users spread everywhere, getting that information and detecting if problems before the customer potentially even knows about them, and then having the insight and understanding of having a consultant or an engineer that has done this for a very long time look at this information and being able to provide feedback back to these end users that have issues and give them good information on how to make that next call better. Maybe it was an internet issue, maybe it was a service issue, maybe it was, maybe they don't understand that you shouldn't be making calls far away from maybe where your wireless access point is, and we'll have that data and we can proactively provide that. One additional piece is most customers don't have the resources on their own staff to interpret this information. We do this every day. So when we look at something versus a customer look at something, it's going to be much faster for us to provide that detail, that summary Cliff Notes version of the problem versus their own staff doing that.
It just makes sense that that's what every MSP should be doing. But Mike, jumping back to you, what does monitoring really look like right now? Maybe you can give us a kind of a comparison, the tools you've got right now with Microsoft as well compared to how you guys are doing the monitoring.
Yeah, sure. So, the working with several partners and customers, kind of the biggest gap has been, the Microsoft like CQD data. It only takes you so far, right? It's, yep, we know there's a problem, but we still don't know, what headset is Chad using? Is it even like verified or compliant with what we're ultimately saying should be approved internally? Who's his ISP, right? Because again, to Chad's point, like, are you just sitting close enough to your router? How many of the kids are streaming Netflix while also supposed to be doing schoolwork at home, right? So giving customers those insights with the monitoring allows you to make those adjustments, and it really becomes, and we've seen it, and I suspect folks on this call or watching on the live stream have done this. The first thing you do when there's a problem is you call the next natural person in the value chain, right? Which is, okay, well, if it's a Teams problem, I'm either calling my IT guy or he's calling Microsoft. Somebody's calling Microsoft, and it's not Microsoft, then you're calling the ISP. Well, obviously it's, insert ISP's problem because this just isn't working properly. We all know that there is a multitude of different things that could potentially be creating those issues. And our diagnostics piece allows you to see just how those hops are taking place, right? So it takes the guesswork out of it a little bit. It doesn't mean that it immediately fixes the issue, but at least you know where to start, right? It's like a treasure map. And I know that simplifies things for some folks, but at least being able to say, okay, I know definitively it's definitely not a Microsoft problem. It's definitely not an ISP problem. Mike just has too many people at home on Wi-Fi right now, which is something that we can solve.
Sometimes, everybody gets challenges with technology. It's just a natural way of life. And the knee-jerk reaction is, just restart it or reboot it or something, right? And if you get past that, the question is, what do you do next? So if I hear you right, your platform sort of like layers in there and pulls all the data out so you could figure out where all the, problems are. So at least they understand, what this problem really is. If they could even find a way to solve it, that's another challenge, but at least you're identifying that stuff. When you identify these problems for, let's say, your MSPs or for the network in general, using the companies using the Microsoft platforms, what are some of the things that you're seeing coming back as a result, an outcome from them being able to do this? Are they resolving this stuff faster? Are they able to get a better performance? What exactly is the outcome?
Yeah, so one of the one of the things that, and I'll use a real use case, I'll redact the customer name. but we have a large global national that we work with that's in the healthcare space. And, they've got 1,000 different clinics globally, over 50 different hospitals that they support. And you can imagine how via the different regions that they live in, there's a number of different ISPs involved. You've got a number of different variations of work from home or remote work or hybrid work. Then you've got another whole layer in there, which is, everybody used to be so comfortable going to the office. Now you've got that office phone number routed to Teams, which also has implications from a PSTN and a direct routing perspective. Then you've got peer-to-peer direct calls trying to be made versus, sometimes that happens direct, sometimes that's sitting on more of a conference type call via Teams that's in Exchange Cloud or on Azure Cloud. And it's just never really clear, right? And so when we give customers and partners this data, ultimately it allows them to be able to say, okay, I can fix many of these problems now that I know where they occur, because simply calling Microsoft and they're going to say, well, our service is actually working, right? They're probably 99% of the time they're accurate on that. Our service is actually working, and there's a multitude of different issues, but the outcome is simple. For this particular customer, and I was being sincere, their employees had given up on putting in IT tickets because there was just so many of them. When you've got tens of thousands of employees that are having problems with Teams and Outlook and SharePoint and Office 365 in general, the number of IT support tickets is vast, and the resolution times become longer and longer if you're just not able to simply resolve those problems. And so this organization, very frustrated, admittedly didn't know what they didn't know. And so we've done a couple of things in that scenario. One is we've given them ongoing monitoring, so they don't need to rely on people to put in tickets anymore. Obviously, if people aren't telling you there's a problem, and if you're not monitoring it, you assume everything's fine, right? Well, we know that's not the case. So not having to rely on those folks is just one less thing that they have to do every day. You get proactive, as Chad mentioned, it's proactive alerting, so you can get ahead of it, likely before most other people have even noticed. So we reduce the number of overall support tickets, which is very helpful. We have incident correlation, so if it has come in somewhere else, you can tie it all together, so you're not just repeating work or effort. And then more importantly, it's about productivity, right? So, and again, you mentioned about the EMEA report, which was surprising to us as well, that one of the most valuable Office 365 application is Excel. But I get it, after it wasn't immediately obvious, but as we started discussing with customers, if finance can't access spreadsheets, what do? There's nothing to do, right? So they're dead in the water. And so productivity becomes very important. And we know that there's a number of organizations out there that are trying to really solve that productivity score, and how productive are people at working from home versus, working in an office. And it's not really about a question of, are your people just becoming more apathetic? It's, do they have the right tools, and are they supported the right way in order to be able to do their jobs? And we know from a number of different reports that people are just not confident in that, right? It's like, I'm mostly productive. Am I as productive as I was in the office? That remains to be seen.
Well, Mike, people use it for use Excel for financial, but don't forget, a lot of people use it for password management. So I'll leave that there for another discussion. So if you can't access your Excel sheet, you can't access your passwords. Chad, jumping back to you. So this sort of like gives you a bit of a preemptive sort of a way to monitor the situation, right? So what does that do in terms of your managed services business to sort of up the game, if you will? If you look at even in a competitive situation, you're now doing stuff proactively as opposed to reactively. How does that fit into your game?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that the expertise in the partner space around deep insight in Microsoft Teams, especially when you get into the workloads that cover real-time media, such as meetings and calling, and those scenarios, is already, requires a skill level that is pretty significant to understand and be successful with. One of the things that we've seen as we went through an evaluation of several other products in this space as we looked at, how could we offer a good managed service around a problem that we feel is at the forefront of this. And there's a lot of other vendors out there, and they all kind of do the same thing, except for Martello. They all do, they'll monitor with probes your network connections. They'll do what we'll call synthetic typical data traffic, right? And they'll look at latency and packet loss and all that sort of stuff. Everybody else does that sort of thing. The one thing that was different with Martello is we immediately recognized their experience and understanding of the Microsoft Teams workload, even as Mike mentions direct routing and some of these components. These were areas that these other vendors were just simply not familiar with. When we talked with Martello, they understood how a call traverses the Microsoft network. They understood when they started talking about graph APIs and integration, that there's things that you can do to synthetically, simulate calls and then correlate that to CQD data. It was the deep, interconnection with the Microsoft service and the data that's in a customer tenant and bring all that together. That's really, if you're going to do this, this is the way to do it. So that was what really, separated Martello from the rest of the pack from our perspective. And that's why we built our solution built off that.
So Chad, one more question on the usability of this. So you've got your platforms, you're deploying it for your customers. Are you seeing like an outcome where your customers are coming back to you and go, Chad, you got this. We're actually seeing improved performance. We're not as worried as we were before. We're not putting in as much tickets. Are you actually seeing that impact right now?
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that's really interesting here is having the information to give users and staff at these organizations, just give them the information that is correct to then relay that back to whoever's having the problem to make the adjustment, is really comes down to having that technical information, but having that ability to communicate clearly back to the users that are having issues, what those problems are, just increases the experience and the positive, perception of the product they're using. Most of the time where this all is, kind of all falls down is there's just bad communication, and there's bad communication because there's no good understanding of the data and the reasons why these happen. So when we do that consistently, and we actually provide every time there's a call quality issue, so from a reactive perspective, we even if it was customer says, hey, we had an issue and we went to look at this, what we'll do is we'll analyze that. We'll provide the customer a simple form that gives that information back to them so they can relay that back consistently to their end user. So it bridges that technical and communication piece, which then people don't open tickets because they don't, they're not going to keep doing things that seem crazy if they're not getting the response they want. That's why that stops. But this is where we really help those users move forward.
I could actually see how it could become a really amazing competitive advantage, right, over the other folks selling just the run-of-the-mill, MS product, right? And not to mention that you get more sticky with the customer, because if you're giving a certain level of service like what you're offering, that's definitely going to pan out well when they look to see you as a service provider. I don't know if you can answer this one, but can you actually charge more for the service, or you gotta stick with the regular pricing?
So we charge more. I'll just
Okay.
concur with that. When we resell the service as our CloudWatch service, it includes the core Martello. Basically, our core piece is what we use for that as an MSP, that's our service foundation. And then the services that we layer on top of that. So obviously there's the cost for the product, and then there's the cost for the enhanced additional services that really provide the value. And that's our experience with our engineers and our insight that can basically translate that information and use that correlation data. And then we are able to charge more at a premium for that. And customers, when you're providing a managed service that based on all the data that was presented during this call, where Microsoft Teams is considered a critical, mission critical service, the cost of that really becomes something that is easier to take on as a customer when you sell it, because it's mission critical. So if it's not working, it's kind of a big deal. So it makes that conversation that much more simple.
It's making a lot of sense. I mean, Mike, what do you want to tell MSPs out there about how this can be helping them to up their game when it comes to their Microsoft book of business? What do you want them to know?
Yeah, I think Chad kind of nailed it for us. I mean, it all comes down to, the ability to not only just provide a higher quality of service, but it obviously comes down to opportunity and revenue, right? It's a very competitive space out there. just selling Microsoft licenses, I don't think is super lucrative anymore for anybody. It's really around, the services that are offered. And again, so many customers have a need right now because they just simply don't know. And nobody is certain how to solve this like work from home stuff other than MSPs. I think they're uniquely positioned to do that. They're used to trying to solve customer problems from somewhere else. And so, I think there's a real opportunity for, MSPs and service providers to grab a hold of the Martello technology, not only make, things more productive and provide more value for their customer, but drive down your own costs, right? Like Chad's talking about being able to charge more, but there's two sides to that pointy spear, right? Which is he's able to charge more, but also reduces overall cost when resolving problems. And so I think that's super valuable for everybody that's out there. And it's an exciting time to be in this space.
Interesting stuff. Chad, a question. How was the experience dealing with them, by the way? I hate to put everybody in the spot here, but did you have a good experience with Martello?
Well, if we didn't, we probably wouldn't be doing this, but it was,
I would imagine, yeah.
so I think as far as, the way I categorize the experience is it felt like we were speaking the same language. When we're speaking to other vendors in this space, we were speaking a different dialect, but we're on the same path, but it wasn't quite the same, and felt like you had to keep convincing them and helping them understand what we're really, thinking we should be, you should be seeing as a product. And Martello was like, we already have it. And so that was the first piece that we noticed, is that, like I said, it sounded like we were on the same page, but speaking the same language. The other piece is, just working with the folks we have are, very responsive, willing to work together as anybody you would want to partner with, right? There are good vendors to partner with, and then there are others where, the experience just isn't, it feels like, are we really working together or not? With Martello, you're working together. So, it's been great.
Good stuff. I just don't want to put you too much in the spot, but thank you for confirming that for everybody. A lot of companies talk about the downstream revenue. Here's a thing that you buy from the major vendor, and then you can add on all these services. And it's just, we hear about it all the time. In a way, there's a really good example of how you can improve services and add more downstream revenue. I don't know, I don't want to discuss the pricing issues at all, but I'm assuming that you can make more money, as you said, you can add more services to this. And what about the customer itself and the services you can offer? Does this sort of open the door to actually offering that customer even more services?
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons any customer or any partner like us would sell managed services is, first of all, there's a need, there's recurring revenue, which is really important. But there's also that relationship that you're able to continue to establish with the customer, where you have that, like you said, stickiness and the ability to, continuously be in communication in a level where you have an active engagement, hopefully for, a long period of time. That, relationship is what inherently allows us to talk about new projects and, if there's new sites they're bringing online, if there's other services within our portfolio they're interested in, if there's reporting solutions or other call, recording solutions and things like that. It just, it gives you that ability when you think about, Microsoft Teams platform, having a solution like this as a service, as a managed service provider, just gives you that ability to have that path and that communication to, extend your services in a long-term type, scenario.
Excellent stuff. So we got a few more minutes left of the session. So if anybody had any more questions you want to direct to these gentlemen, let us know. Mike, while we wait for that, what are some of the things that you're working on that is going to even take this to the next level, right? For the MSP community that is looking to build up their Microsoft book of business, if you can talk about it.
Yeah, fair question. So obviously we want to continue to separate ourselves from a lot of other monitoring solutions that are out there and really focus or double down on the Microsoft stack. And so we're looking at different innovations around, what improvements or additional data sets can we pull in on Teams as we continue to see it evolve and take on more critical workloads. How do we, continue to iterate on things like meeting rooms and conferences and live stream broadcasts from Teams that seems to be more and more requested. So you see some enhanced functionality on those things. Obviously we want to see where Microsoft goes with they've signaled that they want to get into making Teams more the desktop of the future, right? Does that mean Windows is going away? We're not all certain. We know Windows 11 is coming out, so it's probably not this year. But Teams Windows 11 is very Teams centric. So what other additional data sets can we pull from that that just provide more value for partners and IT organizations to help resolve work from anywhere challenges? How does Dynamics ultimately then play into that, right? So it doesn't just stop with communication. It's also about customer records and data that flows through Teams. So there's some things there and some ideas we're kicking around. One of the things that I did hint a little earlier that is something that's an area of focus for us. That's an ongoing customer request and certainly a partner request is really more around session border controllers, PSTN data, direct routing, even SIP trunking. So we're looking at additional features and enhancements there that will kind of help start to bridge that gap. Take a little more of the guesswork out of it. If we've got the ISP and we do have some direct routing stuff and some PSTN data and CQD data, how can we further enhance that by going a little further down the track on the direct routing and SIP trunking side? Again, just to make everybody's life easier, right? And somewhere in that chain, usually is where the problem resides. So if we can expose where those are and put or I guess empower the IT teams to create uptime and efficiency and productivity for employees, that's our number one goal.
Sounds good. I can see Chad making some notes to hold your feet to the fire moving forward. A quick last question just before we jump to the workshop. So how long does it take to spin this up if you're an MSP, right? What was the experience, Chad or Mike? What do you guys see as the experience to take this, implement it, get it up and running, so now you're off the races?
I could take a stab at it, Mike, first. So, that was some of the questions we had as we were evaluating partners is, what's involved in getting this going. Everything that Martello did, as far as, the components are involved in the platform, just all made sense. Specifically, multi-tenant was a huge, item for us, understanding how are we going to support multiple customers on a platform. What are the potential, any additional items that we would may need to deploy in the customer environment to gain additional insight, understanding that. It's very simple. In creating an offer, we're very familiar with how we create an offer and deliver that. I would say it's very simple for us. So, Martello helped with that, but we had a product brochure probably within 2 or 3 days of officially, going through and committing to being a partner. Very straightforward. Good content too. They actually have good white papers and brochures to share with you to create your offer, to take that information and make it yours.
Well, Mike is not really smiling in his face, but he's smiling inside, right? So, Mike, I'll let you have the last word. Maybe less than a minute here to go. What do you want to wrap this up with? What do you want to say?
I guess the main thing for us is, in working with, Cloud Revolution and our customers that are out there, is really just trying to drive that speed to value, right, is big and important for us. We know that it's a vast and evolving landscape in this work from home and hybrid work environment. And our goal is to just help go as fast as we can, so you can go as fast as you can, which is we all know is just a race against time almost every day. And so we want to continue to iterate and innovate to drive that speed to value, that day one value. Just make it as easy as possible for partners to work with us, and of course customers to work with us. And that all just comes down to creating those efficiencies, right? In our onboarding process, in our how you get the data, how you visualize the data, and extract that, and how you can then turn that around into actionable insights. So we'll be making some improvements over the next couple quarters, more so on that front, to just continue to help bridge the gap for everybody in a weird world.
Good stuff. So we'll wrap this first session up there, and we're going to jump into a very brief 20-minute presentation about the tool. We'll be joining. So Chad, thank you very much, and Mike for joining us. We're going to jump into two additional parts of part two of this now. So I'd like to welcome Wade and Gart. If you were there you go. And I'm just going to jump off. And Wade McCallum is the VP of Americas for Martello, and Gart Fisher / Brooks, right? Technical engineer. So they're going to be walking it through exactly how this is done, so you get the mystery out of it, and you can see that it's not rocket science, I think. All right, so take it away, folks.
Good stuff. Thanks, Julian. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Mike. That was some really great insight. So what Gareth and I are going to do now is kind of, bring that to practicality, right? We're going to show you exactly, how some of these concepts, are deployed in the real world, and how we're helping some customers. Mike mentioned one of the healthcare providers. We're going to dig into that as a use case as well. But, the big thing is, we understand that this new world, provides a lot of challenges for our MSPs, but there's also a lot of opportunity in front of those challenges as well. So we're going to address those, and we're going to get into them. And the big thing is we want to make sure that you realize that we feel your pain. We understand that we work in your world every day. We've been working with partners and customers for the last 10 years. We understand that managing a Microsoft service environment is really difficult. And the last little while, the 18 to 20 months, we've been pushed to advance that innovation even faster with things like Teams and Office 365, which adds to the complexity, and it makes it that much harder. And as we start to move down the road of convergence and pulling in PSTN data, we're asking our MSPs and our service providers to do a lot, but also deliver a higher quality of service than ever before. You guys touched on it in the panel discussion. Visibility is absolutely critical to be able to deliver a high quality of service. But with only 16% of end users, who actually put a ticket in when there is a problem, our service providers are really kind of flying with a lack of information. So what our goal is in walking through these use cases is we want to help you take those challenges and flip them into opportunities. And I think Chad and Mike did a great job kind of showing that it's not just about challenges, it's about turning them into opportunities to grow sales, to increase margins, improve the customer experience, and increase retention rates. So to do that, we're going to highlight a couple of scenarios that I know that we talk about every single day. Gareth is doing demos and providing solutions to customers every day around visibility. It's all about getting our partners end-to-end visibility that allow them to proactively manage that service environment that's becoming more complex day in and day out. Whether it is Office 365 or companies that are moving to unified communications, these are become mission critical applications. So let's have a look at the first use case. So what we're going to do, I'm going to give you a highlight, and then Gareth is going to show you how our Vantage DX application is solving that use case for this particular customer. I think it's also important to just highlight these customers and why we think the use case is really compelling. We're going to talk about multinational customers who have 1,000+ employees. They have on-site resources to depend on, but they're coming to us every single day. If they have 100,000 licenses, you have influence with Microsoft, but they're still having challenges. We really believe that that's compounded when you actually move into the smaller, medium-sized businesses, and it opens the door for our service partners to be able to come in and deliver a high level of service that quite frankly, our customers are being challenged with today because they don't have the insight required. So the first company we're going to look at, and I think Mike did, Mike touched on this company as well. It's a global healthcare provider, multinational locations, over 200,000 employees, and their teams for them and Office 365 is mission critical. Mike highlighted. Unfortunately, their users have given up with tickets. They just don't give tickets. So those responsible for reporting and fixing those problems, just are not aligned. So they have a large number of problems out there that just aren't getting resolved. So they've come to ask, and they're looking for a platform that's going to give them the insight to be able to, first of all, find problems and resolve those problems, much quicker, but also give them the data that allows them to maximize their resources and change how they approach their environment. So, Garth, let's show them how Vantage DX is going to help this healthcare provider get the insight that they require, to provide a better quality of service for their end users.
Perfect. Just also want to thank Julian for having me here, and thank you, Wade, for that level of insight. So where I'm going to start off here with the Martello solution or Vantage DX solution is I'm going to start off with the integrations. As we could see in our first use case, the multinational healthcare provider, they're looking for, integration of their ITSM tool. They're looking for IT ops integration. And that's where Martello excels. And you can see I started off on this page just to show you some of what we've already integrated into our solution. But here's a quick list of what you can integrate with our solution, which is pretty awesome. Several different ITSMs or major ones already listed here, as well as, SolarWinds or SCOM or and PRTG, Splunk and stuff like that for IT ops. So, you may be wondering, why are we integrating all these things? Well, that's the best way, in my opinion, to get the view you need to figure out what's going on with your service delivery as far as it pertains to Microsoft 365. So I'd just like to start off here as well, just to show you some of the searches. So these are what we call safe searches. So, as soon as you create an integration, for example, with your CQD data, these automatically populate for you. We're going to give you a couple of critical boards, or not boards, but searches that we think are insightful to what you're trying to figure out when it comes to your end user service. So, you can see here that you can, create different ones as you need to. Plus, this is also based on Elasticsearch, right? So once you create all these integrations, now you're able to search across all these different platforms or all these different solutions in one consolidated view. All the information you will need will be right here. So you can see, now we can look at how certain ISPs are performing across our organization. We have some Canadian ones in here, the Office 365 services themselves, poor calls or meetings, lots of different ways to slice and dice this data once you integrate with it, with our solution. So we'll just take a quick look at these poor calls here that are showing up here. And again, just to reiterate, this level of insight is right outside immediately right there. As soon as you integrate with our tool with your call quality data, this is a level of insight you get. And Mike touched on this as well, is our approach to solving these problems is you want to prioritize, right? How do you know who's having a problem if they're not opening a ticket? So with this, you'll be able to tell, so we're just looking at a meeting here and just showing you, who had poor calls within this meeting, et cetera, et cetera. And then, alerts can be, these alerts can also be integrated right into your ticketing system. So here you see incident automation, as well as some other things that we have at our disposal. So just to highlight a couple more of the things that we have here. So I showed you that one here. So here's another one that I really like as well. So this is a overall view of every single ISP in use by Martello employees, regardless of where they are. They could be remote, they could be in a central office somewhere, it doesn't matter. We have all that ISP data here. So now you can compare, contrast, see what's going on, who's delivering much better performance, whose performance is a little poor, So again, we can see here AT&T Corp is, not performing so well. And it'll give you a quick breakdown on why, the top 25 locations, the people who are using it, et cetera, as well as, the amount of poor calls that they may have had during that time frame. So, that's just some of the level of insight you can get with this. Plus, you can also drill in further if you wanted to. You'll see the alerts that were generated because of this. So you can see James had some issues yesterday. And again, you can look at what those issues were and what he was using. So, here James was on a Mac OS X system, all sorts of different stuff regarding to why he had an issue, from the round trip time, packet loss, jitter, and the reverse of those metrics, because all those things can have an impact on the quality of the call. And as I mentioned with the ITSM integration, straight from our singular view dashboard here, you can go ahead and create a new ticket. You can link it to an existing ticket if it already existed, resolve or acknowledge incidents from within here. So the last piece I want to touch on now before I turn it back over to Mike, to Wade, I should say, is just just touch on some of the other things that we can do with this. And you can again create searches whichever way you want to. So we can look at people with high jitter, or high round trip time, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess I will want to focus on this one now before I turn it back over. So here again, you'll see a list of people who may be experiencing those types of issues or problems. And here we have Ned. You can see he was on it looks like an iPad mini, the architecture there. And then, it'll call out the reasons why. So there's why. We had high round trip time in the forward direction as well as in the reverse direction. Then it'll also allow a lot of calls. But towards the end, it'll list out the poor calls that were affected by these things and why. What's the reason why? So again, right outside the box, you get this level of insight without really installing anything. It just sort of comes with the platform as soon as you do an integration. And the very last piece to show. So now, we've prioritized by looking at who's having the problem, whether or not they're opening tickets. So now we need to try to resolve those. And we could do that several different ways, but I'll highlight this one here. This is one of our probes that we can, deploy onto a location to gauge what's going on at that particular location, or we can go ahead and put it on a single laptop if that person is, saying they're having lots of problems. So this is the portion we call Vantage DX Diagnostics. So essentially, this is a probe that's going to be running on the system or from a central location that's going to take the exact path that end users taking on their journey to the Microsoft end services. So it's also configurable for other stuff. Here you see we're looking at Salesforce, but since we're talking about Teams, let's just take a quick gander at what we can glean from this here. So, you need to know where the problem is coming from. Is it coming from the local segment? Is it coming from the ISP, or is it when it hits the Microsoft side? So you can see a hop by hop breakdown of it, but who's the owner? Simple. We just toggle that switch here and you can see, local segment, the ISP segment, when it hits the Microsoft front doors, all the way up to when it hits the Microsoft data centers in the back end. And of course, you can, look at all the different things like the hops, round trip time, packet loss, and jitter. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Gareth. So, as you can see, the Vantage DX platform is giving this customer the insight and the data that is really required for them to solve their problems faster and make better decisions. And as Chad mentioned, that insight and that end-to-end visibility is so important to be able to find and prioritize where problems live as they kind of move through the life cycle. So the next example that I want to show you is a technology company, and this technology company is a global brand, a household brand. Everybody would know it. They have multiple locations, multiple divisions, and they have basically forklift out their mission critical communication application, and now they are dependent on Teams Enterprise Voice. So, of course, we all know voice is critical to anybody's operation. But as they moved to Teams for Enterprise Voice, they realized that they just did not have the tools that were required to gain the insight and that end-to-end visibility for them to effectively manage and operate the application and the service as they wanted to. A couple of key things that they were missing is they had no alerting when problems came up. They did not have the ability to report on issues, so they were kind of blind when they were able to make decisions. It was a little bit of haphazard and kind of guessing, and they were really left with challenges on how to maximize their investment with Microsoft Teams, and double down on that investment to ensure that they were receiving the absolute best value, and also giving their end users the best quality of service possible. And it's all about, it's all about that whole problem. We've added the complexity. It started off with the complexities with our internal network. Then it became the internet, and now it's the PSTN data. So we just add more complexity, and solving problems and optimizing that environment starts with monitoring. So Gareth, let's have a look at how the Vantage DX platform is helping this technology company overcome some of the challenges that they have today.
Thank you, Wade. I'm going to stop calling you Mike, I swear.
That's all right. Mike's a pretty good looking guy, so I'm okay with it.
I just realized I'm like, I called him Mike again. But anyway, back to what our little presentation here. So we saw how, with the Vantage DX, Martello's Vantage DX solution, you can get insight right out of the box as soon as you integrate your CQD data. We can prioritize who's having issues. We can then move to the resolving phase of those issues by deploying some probes to get, pinpoint where the problem is coming from. I also mentioned that this is based on Elasticsearch. So, let's just look at some quick PSTN data here. And it doesn't look like much happened, but it did. As soon as I did that, it refreshed and started to show me some Mitel information here, some tickets around that are integrated with ServiceNow around the PSTN information. But let's look at these groups and services here. And you can see there's several different, there's a trunk there and different PSTN information that's coming up. But let's take a look at this group. So, from here, you'll get a quick summary of this PSTN carrier. You'll see, of course, the locations, the name, who were using it, and a quick summary of the amount of calls they had, how long they were, et cetera. But, and again, if anything were to occur with this stuff, like you can see here, it jumps straight to the alerts once I jumped into this view. Now you can see all the different, issues that occurred based on this. So you can see Madeline had some issues using Wi-Fi on video frame rate averages not being very good. And there's some round trip issues down here as well. So, now we're also integrating or bringing in that PSTN data, being able to alert you on anytime there's an issue, and just, making you giving you way more visibility than you had before into these types of services, so that you can ensure the delivery is what you want it to be for your end users. Now, now we're going to talk about more of the optimizing sorts of things side of things here. Now we're going to talk about our business services. So, once you do all these integrations and bring everything in from all the different, angles or views you have of the environment of all these different things, Office 365, et cetera. Now you can create a business service, right? You can take all these different things and define a business service that depends on these underlying components. Now, as you can see, it bubbles up the issues, anything with issues to the top, and it gets better as it goes to the bottom, and these are not active. And what's great about this that I really love is the fact that you could, tell it what's more important. Is it the end user? Is it the application supporting the business service, infrastructure, or even supplier services? And straight from this view, again, you'll see any alerts across any of these business services, any incidents, as well as your SLA. You can also, define your service level objective. Maybe it's not 99%. Supplier services, incident automation. So it integrates with your ITSM automatically, be able to create tickets on its own. Maintenance, that's really important to SLAs. You want to be able to, schedule those out, or if it's an emergency, just start it right now. So let's just take a quick look at one of these really quickly and see what's in here. So as soon as you click in, you're going to get a summary view of your SLA for the time period, right? And anything green, of course, is good. Anything red is impacted. And then what I mentioned is, now you can start to build these things based on your different components. So you could have a bunch of different things in here of all these different kinds. And that would also all these would go to make up the performance of this business service, all the alerts there as well. So, that's some of the ways that this can help you. And let me just come back in really quickly again. So you can see that when you go to the SLA piece, it shows you who is affecting your SLA, right? And why. They run out of a bell, and it's end user, and it's coming from Office 365. So the last thing I do want to touch on before I turn this back over to Wade, not Mike, is that on the PSTN stuff, we've been starting to leverage, Kibana dashboard for this. So these are just some quick examples of how we're going to start to visualize this PSTN data for you, from all the way to the network to the calls and all that sort of thing. So Wade, back over to you.
Thanks, Gareth. Thanks for walking us through the platform. So what you've heard Gareth talked about prioritize, resolve, and optimize. And ultimately, that's what the Vantage DX platform is designed to help our managed service partners, move towards their business. And Chad mentioned the importance of taking his business from a reactive state to a proactive state, and getting in front of problems before they even happen. And he's deployed this model so he can do that now, and that opens up not only a number of opportunities to improve the customer service that his organization delivers, but it also empowers him to take complexity and provide insight into a complex world and a growing complex world, and deliver that service in a consistent way, ultimately driving cost out of the organization, looking for opportunities to drive new revenue, increase customer service, which ultimately means to higher retention rates. So, the prioritize, resolve, optimize, impacts all levels of business, and we support that type of business model with the Vantage DX platform. So that being said, I want to thank everyone. I know we walked through this kind of at lightning speed, but I do believe we still have some time for some questions. So I think we're going to bring in the rest of the panel to address those. And again, thanks, Jillian. I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right. Great presentation. Just want to say, wow, I'm not even sure how MSPs can actually manage this stuff without a dashboard like that. We do have a question right out of the gate here. Can we share these reports with the customers? Is there a way to do that? Anybody?
Yes, absolutely. Are you talking about those SLA reports?
Yeah, because you've got these great reports, right? And this, I know it, you know it, but then we want to show the customer, hey, here's how we're keeping you alive, right?
Absolutely. On that one last board page I showed with the business services, you can actually check, there's a checkbox where you can run SLA reports for several of those business services at once, or you can just run one for one business service if you prefer. We're also going to have these on a schedule type of basis where you can schedule them and define who gets them, and they could just be pumped out automatically.
Nice. Because, in this game, as you all know, right, as you send that bill every month to that customer, you do have to justify getting paid the next month. So it's great to actually show them this type of stuff, right? Another question about the platform and tenants. Is there a limit to how many tenants can I put into this platform?
Go ahead, Wayne.
No, sorry. Yeah. So no, I mean, one of the things that we actually have is, we take a unique approach to multi-tenancy and how we divide that up. But ultimately, am I mute? No. So I see Gareth tapping his ear, so I thought it might have been a mute. Sorry, folks. So we take a unique approach to multi-tenancy, and we rely on one of our technology stacks to manage that for us. But no, we don't have a limit at this point.
Garth's just tapping that because he's got a fancy mute and unmute button. Like,
that's what I was about to explain next to my own.
That's the pro stuff, right? We're just using old school stuff, and Garth's way over there. So, if you put yourself, let's put ourselves in the shoes, right, of an MSP, all right? So I've got umpteen clients using the Microsoft platform, and as you actually showed, other platforms as well. And you want to deliver, upscale your service, right? At the end of the day, you want to ensure the performance is peaked, right? So that your customers are happy, so they keep sending you that check, right? What are some of the experiences you guys have seen when it comes to the actual MSP itself, and how they have sort of, when they implemented this, how it actually changed the way they do business with their customers? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I think Chad, I'm going back to that reactive to proactive state. And I think that's one of the things that we see most commonly is, it's really tough in this environment to, first of all, identify that there are problems, first of all, but when we do, is to be able to find those problems because they exist in multiple areas. So just that ability to, start, dealing with the fires as they come, get them out really quickly, but then move to that optimization state where you can, start putting policy procedure, technology stacks in place to address the problems before they ever become an issue with an end user. That's kind of game changer, right? Because now you're eliminating problems. You're just delivering this high quality of service and not necessarily reacting. So if you can get to those problems before they become a issue with your support desk, that makes a big difference. And I think that is the biggest thing, the insight to be able to proactively manage your customer base as opposed to reactive.
So just to add to that too, Julian, if you don't mind, I've seen MSPs as well, like create offerings around our solution. They know someone's going to be deploying Microsoft 365 to their end users. They sort of package this along with that to ensure that they get the best use of that service.
I mean, excellent stuff. I mean, you guys see this stuff all day long. So you see all the problems that's popping up, right? The challenges. What are some of the things that surprised you about things that you're seeing that's causing this thing to drop on performance that maybe you weren't expecting? Are there things that you're seeing like that?
Well, I have one that I want to throw out there quickly because I've seen one, and I touched on this before when I showed the diagnostics piece of how we map that journey to Microsoft 365 services. And I've seen it where it's called peering distance, right? So technically, your traffic leaves your house because everyone's remote now. It hits the ISP's network, and they're supposed to hand you off to Microsoft, hopefully as closely as possible to where you live. But I've seen it where some ISPs will send your traffic from the East Coast to the West Coast, right? So now you're traveling across the country before you get to the Microsoft front doors, and then that has to come all the way back to you. So that's one of the interesting things I've noticed while using this solution.
Wade, you want to add to that?
I do. And this is, I think this goes and speaks to kind of the granularity. And, I think it was Mike or Garth touched on it before is, so our service can identify, standard equipment, for example. Mike, I believe, mentioned the headphone. And, so, we've actually helped the customer walk through a scenario where they were having problems. We deployed our application and realized that they had a group of users that were not using approved headphones, and lo and behold, when they actually changed out those headphones, their performance improved. So it's I guess that speaks to two things: the complexity and the granularity that we're asking these service providers to solve every single day, and it's just highlights the importance of having the insight to be able to dig at that level.
It's quite interesting that these challenges exist, because I mean, certainly it's very difficult when you're looking at what is the problem, right? Is it because they're bouncing it between East Coast and West Coast to get it to the Microsoft servers, different headset, whatever that is, right? I mean, how do you really know what the problem is, except maybe it'll go away type thing, right? So what's interesting about this from an MSP perspective, I would imagine that if I was to bake this into my playbook, if you will, into my solution stack, I'm able to offer a level of service that I just cannot offer any other way. I mean, what is the alternative to this? Is there an alternative?
Yeah, I mean, that's we hear this quite often, right? And Microsoft, most of our MSPs depend on the Microsoft native applications. And they just haven't brought it to that layer yet, right? We know that we have to expand, monitoring capabilities. We talked about, there's more mission critical applications out there besides the Microsoft stack. There's other things that you need to tie in. Garth touched on Salesforce, for example. So being able to pull this all in together, have that unified view of your organization and your service environment makes it really important. And for a lot of our MSPs that we're talking to, for them, it opens a new world. It opens new markets. It allows them to, tackle some technology stacks that maybe they didn't have the staff or the capability to do before. So it opens new revenue opportunities.
I see the light. Hey, so if you're an MSP, definitely you want to bake something like this into your playbook. If you're a big user of the platforms, right, Microsoft and so forth, you definitely want to know what's in there, what the problems are. So check it all out. The website address, for those who don't know, is martellotech.com, and check it all out. And we'll have this posted with all the links. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Garth and Wade, and the rest of the team. It's been a pleasure to kind of experience this and to bring this to our channel community. So thank you all very much for participating, and we shall see you soon. Take care, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julian.